The Secrets of Stargate is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, Episode 61.
Janet West, Jackson has identified the seventh symbol.
All right, here we go. We are about to try to make a connection.
All we gotta do is bust out of here, commandeer the ship, and fly on home.
Indeed. You say that a lot.
I know that this could be dangerous. But this is our job, right? It's what we signed on to do.
It was never about going home. It's about getting us to where we're going.
Hi, I'm Jack Baruzzini, and you're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father.
Howdy, Jack.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack.
Today we're discussing the 19th episode of Season 3, New Ground. The SG-1 team is caught in the middle of a decades-long war between the Baruzzinians and the Optricans. The Baruzzinians like to put people in electric dog cages and be completely obtuse. We never see the Optricans. Teal, blinded by the lights, wrapped up in a deuce named Nyan. Together, they are able to free SG-1, and Nyan returns to Earth to become Daniel Jackson's research assistant.
And is never seen again.
Nope. Yep. I suspect as much. What are your thoughts on this episode, Father?
It was an episode.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it was that bad, but it was just, there really wasn't a lot going on. You know, you had the, like you said, you got the obtuse, you're lying, there's no way you could come from off planet. Well, big ring here that does the koosh thing. How are you sure about that?
Yep. It's there's not really a lot of character arcs for any of these people. Like, the guy doesn't really go from being like the not believing them at all to believing them. It just kind of ends.
Yeah.
So,
like, well, it might be a trick, but don't you come do a rescue through it.
Yeah. What about you, Victor?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the hardest types of SG-1 episode to talk about, where it's not really good and it's not really bad. It's just kind of meh. I mean, there's not a lot of story here. It's just kind of a lot of filler. Yep. And, you could tell that the writer or the show creators maybe wanted to make a point about something or other, but didn't really drive it home, and then it just kind of fizzles out at the end and doesn't really have any lasting implications or repercussions for the story. So
yeah,
it is. I mean, it definitely was a season 3, what is this, episode 19?
Yeah, we're getting towards the end.
Yeah, it was an episode.
Yeah, it's like, I guess the point they were going for was like dealing with people who are very dogmatic to the point of not believing what's right in front of them. But then, so it's kind of like a religious thing, but then it's also like a government propaganda thing, but they don't really come down firmly on either side, so it ends up just being muddled.
Yeah, it's basically like, okay, we've got the quarry for the weekend. We can throw up a couple of tents. Let's make an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a bunch of, not even throw up a couple of tents. We got a bunch of Mylar. Let's just stretch it over the frames. Stretch it over the frame of a greenhouse and call it good. Well, It's interesting. I mean, this was written by Heather E. Ash, who wrote both Learning Curve and Foothold, which were both good episodes. And then this. So I guess everybody's got to have a stinker.
It almost seems like maybe they just, because there's no real, like, well, we get like new uniforms and stuff like that, but then there's no real set pieces, or we don't actually see the villages or the cities or anything. It's just they're in this desert.
They took a line from Doctor Who, find a quarry.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if you need an alien planet, find a quarry. And that's what they did. And they built in a chunk of the quarry. Almost have to expect to see, the quarry trucks in the back, moving rock as they're filming.
No, this is like very good, like half of a Doctor Who episode. Like, this is like the civilization, like the Doctor and his companions would find themselves in, and they'd be like, oh, there's this weird alien thing, and they think we're enemies. And then suddenly, like, it turns out the Daleks or the Cybermen are like running the show, and that's what the episode about. this is like the setting, but no story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't really get anything. Like, the most they can come up with is that everyone gets put in cages and is interrogated in a very stereotypical fashion.
Yeah, well, not just cages, but electrical shock cages that, do damage and
Chucky dog crates.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did. Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting. The Baruzzini technology is pretty interesting. Like, they have super advanced like shuttlecraft and some pretty cool force field technology. I guess they have that going for them.
And that also doesn't really square with the kind of attitude and culture they seem to be wanting them to have. Like, it seems like they want them to be like super fundamentalist, but then they have advanced technology, and I feel like you're not going to get those two things going together like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be a totalitarian regime, who knows? But yeah. Well, I laugh because they are able to dial in the gate because this is a gate that had been buried, but now it's been uncovered. And they send the MALP through, and Daniel goes, "Oh, it looks like their technology is similar to ours," by looking at a ladder.
Yeah. And
I mean, just a ladder.
The little picks that the archaeologists have in their thing, and their like their clothes are like, it could be like really like coarse woven, material or it is pretty and the interesting thing, I mean, just because there's not a lot to talk about with this episode, like Carter at the beginning says this is the cold address program. Later she refers to it as the cold dialing program, whatever. Mm-hmm. But they're basically like redialing old gate addresses that they haven't got a hit on before. And this one happens to have been excavated by two archaeologists, Nyan and Malin. And that's why Carter is able to get a hit on it. And they send a MALP through, and the Nyan is like, "Are you an artificial intelligence?" He's like, No, my boy, I'm speaking to you through this robotic machination here. And Daniel's all set to just charge through the gate, and Jack of course says, "Well, do you see a DHD there?" And we get our first reference to actually an Aquila reactor being used in the field. General Hammond tells Carter, "Take an Aquila reactor so you can hook it up to the gate." And Aquila reactors become like, the Bic lighters of the Stargate franchise at some point. It's like, oh yeah, let's just let's hook one of those up. Let's just make sure you got your Aquila reactor with you. And
of course this one got left behind. Yeah. So now they've given this evil alien empire Aquila reactor technology.
And I'm sure we see them again later on.
Nope.
Yeah, with her program, it's basically an angry IP scanner, but for the Stargate.
Yeah, there you
go. Your address and scan them all and see what hits you get.
Yeah.
A war dialer, for you older folks out there.
Now Nyan's interesting. The character, the actor Nyan, played by Richard Ian Cox, who he might look familiar. I mean, he's somebody that you've probably seen in a lot of shows of this time period, but he's still somebody who today does a lot of animation, voice work, especially like English dubs for like anime and things like that. So he's an actor who's actually quite busy and quite involved in a lot of projects. You just don't see him so much on screen. But
his voice definitely sounded familiar. I'm sure I've heard it in something before. Yeah,
but of course, his choice in archaeology partner is not super duper, as Malin, of course, runs and tells the authorities right away that someone has come through the Stargate.
Yep, just immediately calls them.
And
she doesn't really get any sort of like. There's no reconciliation between them at the end. Like, I thought maybe she might like. There's you don't get anything.
There's no resolution to anything. Yeah. There's no resolution to anything. We're introduced to a scientist who might be like friendly to like the idea of like aliens and stuff. And I have to look up her name because I don't think she's even named in the show. Perry or something, or Perry, who's has anyone seen Perry? But no, she's basically shows up as the scientist and is like, what if they're telling the truth? And her big story, denouement, is she gets like zapped by Teal'c at the end and is like knocked unconscious.
Yeah.
And that's and that's the end of her story arc. Like, there's no big confrontation with like the commanding officer about like, no, I believe these guys are telling the truth or anything. No, she just runs out of the tent and gets like zapped, and that's it for her.
Seemed like there were a lot of like triple taps too. Like, was it killing everybody?
Well,
There were definitely a couple of double taps where you heard the zaps twice,
Yeah.
but
yeah, Nyan like doubles at somebody. Like you only see one blast, but you
get,
hear
like, the
him
two
like
bolts
doubles
in
at
him,
somebody. Yeah.
yeah.
He had a grudge, I guess.
Yeah. The first guy who comes out or something, like Nyan like doubles at him even right after he just told Teal'c to like stun, don't kill or something.
He was just talking about Teal'c, not him.
Yeah. Okay.
They were
Yeah.
his to get.
Oh, I Nyan's latent bloodlust is activated.
Yep.
Take that, Academy.
My,
Yeah.
my favorite part of the episode is when they're talking to. So they've got all their equipment, and SG-1 is all locked up, and they reactivate the gate from the SGC, and General Hammond is calling them on the walkie-talkie. Where they're standing there talking, everyone's distracted, and then like the one officer looks back, and you see the tent kind of moving.
Because the guy can't drive a Maup.
Yeah.
Like the guy just,
exactly.
He's like, turn the camera around. The guy's like, what? Move the Maup like 5 feet in
Yeah.
the wrong direction?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, move it 5 feet the other way? Yeah.
And Daniel's like, don't, wait, no, stop, cut it, quit.
Daniel-
you know, it's,
Very confusing with his hand gestures. You think he's like saying kill the transmission, but really he's like waving. Yeah, it's very confusing what's supposed to be going on there.
That's your about the level of this episode. To get any sort of anything dramatic happening, you got to shake a tin around with the Malp.
well, and we, well, and then we find out that their god, their Goa'uld was Nefertum, who was an underlord of Ra, who I don't think we hear about ever again either.
The Blue Lotus Blossom of Ra.
Yeah.
They referred him that way at least twice. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, so not Neferti, but a different guy.
The other one.
Yeah. But I think that the defining moment. So Teal'c is ambushed in the woods by one of the soldiers. He turns around literally face to face with this guy. They both have staff weapons, which are either like 4 or 6 feet long. And somehow he manages to shoot the guy like, through his chest. But the other guy like manages to shoot his stun weapon right at Teal'c's, the bridge of his nose, which blinds Teal'c. And so Teal'c is like, I'm unconscious and blind now. And Nyan finds him and drags him into a cave. And then Nyan's like, I'm going to go get like something that'll help you out. And Teal'c's like, what's cool about the scene is like Teal'c is like completely vulnerable. It's like one of the few times we see Teal'c completely like vulnerable. He is helpless. He cannot do anything for himself. And then they immediately undercut this by having him swarmed by like rubber bats in this cave. They're like, how can we make Teal'c even? I know. Let's send a swarm of bats at his head, and he'll have to like fight them off, because that always looks realistic in shows when we do that.
Yeah. And of course, they're alien bats, so they look like the monster Draki from Dragon Warrior, if you remember that game. That's exactly what they look like. Kind of a round head with a pointy tail and then bat wings. That's basically what they look like.
Nice. Yeah, I was hoping that this would be a good like Teal'c-centric episode, and we get to see him like battle through this vulnerability. But he just kind of sits in the cave, and then they cure his eyes, and then he comes and shoots people. Like, we don't get any sort of. There's no character in any of these scenes.
Basically, Nyan happened to have a portable LASIK device.
Yeah.
Did LASIK surgery on him.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, what happens if your symbiote can't heal you? Like, will your symbiote die? He's like, it might. And then they get back to Earth. It's like, well, good thing your symbiote's so resilient.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's it's one thing I did like though is Nyan's talking to Teal'c and saying like, come back with me to the academy. I'll, now they'll know that aliens are real, and you can be my proof. And Teal'c is like, I will not be the proof. And I thought that was just a very funny line. I don't know. It wasn't meant that way, but it was very funny.
Yeah, a lot of this episode was just very like writing up the summary in my show notes for this. It's like, what is there even to say?
Yeah, I mean, a couple other things. One thing I did find amusing, and this has nothing to do with the show itself, but the Optricans are their unseen enemy, and the captions on I was watching this on Netflix, but the captions for this had they had a typo and so it said optrician, which is not the same as optician, but I just imagined like it was like, you know, it's going back to Doctor Who, you know, classic Doctor Who, they would have like this you know, alien race, and then it turns out they were from Earth and in their name had been bastardized at some point. And so I was just imagining like, yes, our sworn enemy, the optricians, and their logo is like this big eyeball or something. Yeah. But
maybe that's where
the holy eye chart.
Maybe that's where Nyan got the vision repairing device. He stole it from
from the optricians. Yeah, so I got a kick out of that at least. Yeah. The other thing is like, so they get there and they have these big, huge, they look like, you know, in a cartoon when they would need to give a dog an injection, they have these big, huge syringes that are like, you know, 10 or 12 inches long or whatever. They're maybe not that long, but they go over and Jack goes like, okay, that's a needle. And they inject them. But then there's no, like, they don't say, there's no, you know, what the effect of these needles is supposed to be is never stated. The people don't say, gosh, I feel woozy and I want to tell you the truth now. Well, it's just like they just inject them, and then there's why, you know.
It wasn't an injection, it was a blood draw.
Oh, okay.
See if they were
that makes more sense.
The red blood filling the needle?
That doesn't happen when you get an injection? I've been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it was a blood draw. I thought they were injecting him with like some like, you know, happy juice or something.
Their DNA to see if they were.
And they did reference that later on. Okay.
Yep.
That's still a lot of blood.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean,
isn't it?
We're using turkey basters, so.
Yeah.
That would have been a good twist. They're actually, it's like to serve man. Start cooking them.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting, you know, that so they dial in the gate opens up with the kwoosh and everything. Now it doesn't clear the rock within the gate, and it doesn't clear the rock behind the gate.
Yeah.
You know, the back of the kwoosh doesn't clear the rock behind it. They didn't even bother trying to clear that. They just literally took the prop of the gate up against the rock face of the wall and called it good.
Or just the front face of the prop, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just had established 2 episodes ago that the kwoosh will like destroy things in front of it. Like that's been well established, but they just didn't this time.
And there's a back kwoosh too. You're right, Father Cory. There is an initial back kwoosh before you get the forward kwoosh, and yeah.
And you would think that if the front one, you know, of course, you know, the explanation is when it's buried inside the rock, where it's like the iris, it can't form. But if the front one forms, you think the back one would be able to push back and wipe it out.
I just thought of something. So are Stargates like one directional? Like, do you have to have it facing the right way? And it's like
yes, you can't. Yeah, you can't go backwards through you can't like go out through an incoming wormhole.
Or are you thinking like, can you jump through the back of the gate instead of the front of the gate?
Yeah, like what happens if you go around the back and jump in?
Isn't there an episode where that actually happens, where somebody walks through the?
I don't know. I know.
Now, because there is the issue of if you're going from Earth to Mars, let's say, and so the gate is open on Earth to Mars, you can't walk through it from Mars. We know that because it's been destroyed. The wormhole is 2-way. That's how they can talk to each other on the radio, but the actual matter transmission is 1-way. Now, can you go to the backside of the Earth gate and walk in to get to Mars? I seem to think that's happened, but I can't remember.
Well, so with the puddle jumpers later in Atlantis, they seem to fly through the gates. They don't seem to be too discriminate about like what's the front and what's the back of the gates, but that could just be the way they set it up on the show. I did notice that Nyan, like in the incoming wormhole, he did stick his hand into the incoming wormhole. And I don't know if that's something we've seen a lot too, where people will stick their appendages into the incoming wormhole. Not. I did appreciate though how everybody knew to jump out of the way of the wormhole before it even kawooshed. It didn't get themselves all like, you know, boots, like steaming boots, you know, in the
exactly
in the
incinerated
one episode, yeah. which was good. It would have been kind of like a pretty short episode. Like, oh, where was that guy we were just talking to? But
it might have been more interesting.
General, where are you at?
Would have had, yeah.
All you see is his boots and his guns in there.
I do like that they have a more advanced level of technology here, because I feel like a lot of the planets we see, they're medieval level or at like 20th century at most. So it's nice to see them actually having like shuttlecraft and things like that. But it makes me wonder, like, do they have spaceships? Are they a multi-planetary society? Like, we don't really get anything though, other than they're fighting the Optricians.
I guess they don't leave planet. I don't know, or at least know of other planets that have.
Yeah, it's weird too that they would like refer to Bedrozia as like, this is our continent and not like our country or our nation or, you know, our. Yeah,
it's the whole Planet of Hats thing where you get like monocultures.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like Oceania has always been at war with East Asia.
Exactly. The united North American continent that we have here.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Giant second sound to the south or whatever Ross Perot was talking about. That's one for the kids. Yeah. Yeah, Jack gets a good line in when the general is questioning him about his friend in the woods, referring to Teal'c, who he isn't sure exists or not. But then Jack goes like, "I have no friends in the woods or otherwise."
Oh, yeah.
So we get some half-hearted, like sarcastic quipping by Jack, but his heart's not really in it in this episode.
Yeah.
Daniel does a lot more in this episode, like, you know, blindly jumping through the gate basically to meet another archaeologist, and Nyan is pretty excellent. You know, he does a lot here. It would have been cool to see him again come back as Daniel's assistant, but he's kind of like this won't mean anything to you, Jack, but he's kind of like the proto Jonas Quinn, who is like an alien archaeologist who's like really up on everything, joins the team, you know, basically fits in as a member of the team just because he's so clever, generally speaking, and understands, you know, civilizations and cultures and stuff. But we have to wait a few years before we meet him. But it would have been cool to keep Nyan around, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder where all these one-off people go afterwards. It's like you get in Star Trek every so often, you'll have that character who comes to the future, and then it's just like, what do they do? Like, they have like a get together every so often.
I don't know. It's kind of like if you're being courted by a company and they're like, yeah, we want you to lead our CX division. You're going to lead customer experience. You're like, yeah, I get to define like what the customer experience is for this product. And you get in, and then suddenly you're just answering like, you know, help tickets or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
They just shoved him into Area 51 or something and said, just catalog this stuff here.
Pretty much.
Yeah. You can't go back to your planet. What are you going to do? You got no rights.
Yeah. I wonder, what is does he get citizenship? Does he have you have to get like a birth certificate and a social security number and all that?
I would assume at least minimum green card. I mean,
he's fine. He just can't leave the base.
It's a closet.
He gets a
that
closet.
hasn't stopped him. That hasn't stopped him before.
Yeah. Well, it is. And then it's not clear as like Teal'c and everybody's like diving through the gate. So SG-1 is like, time to bail. And they're all like diving through the gate. And it's like, so is the plan to bring Nyan along, or he's just like kind of standing out there blasting his country? Yeah. Blasting his countrymen. And it's like, finally Teal'c says like, no, let's take this guy with us. But it's like, was that Teal'c's plan, or what was the plan for Nyan here? He's just kind of like opening fire on his countrymen, and as these people he's trying to save just all like leave.
Well, and of course you've got the magic, you know, the gate knows exactly how long it needs to stay open and not a second more.
Yep.
You know, it knows exactly how many people need to go through it and make sure nobody else gets through.
I always assume that maybe they just hit the what's it called, the garage door opener. Close it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remote control.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
What else?
So that was a good episode.
Yeah, it was perfectly fine, perfectly serviceable. Which would have been good.
Mostly harmless.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, mostly harmless. I think that's Father Cory. That's the best explanation for this.
That's
mostly harmless.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is always the best answer for something like that. It's mostly harmless.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Did y'all have any other thoughts about this episode?
Nope.
No, I like the way the stun blast look, and I kind of like the weapons. They were kind of cool, and the shuttlecraft looked kind of neat too, and
yeah, I'd like to see if those that ship model was reused anywhere, because
not in Stargate, I don't think.
Yeah.
Interesting. They would
shades of the puddle jumper later on, but that looks a lot more ancient-y.
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome. Before we go, I'd like to invite everyone to join our Discord at sqpn.com/Discord. We're having a lot of fun over there. We have some feedback from our listeners here. Hist Orb on YouTube, commenting on Children of the Gods all the way back, our very first episode, says, "I love Stargate and I just found this podcast. Awesome." Well, thank you, thank you, and welcome to the podcast. We've been really enjoying this, so we're glad to have you on board.
Yeah, glad to have, and we're always glad to get feedback, what you think of what we have to say, even if you disagree.
Definitely.
Just
feedback
nice.
and fan art is especially
yeah
welcome,
especially if it's My Little Pony themed.
Exactly. And we were talking about the actor who played Nyan, this Richard Ian Cox, and he actually played, I think, 3 characters on Friendship is Magic.
Nice.
So
there we go.
Yeah.
Everything is connected.
Yep.
We also had some feedback from Catherine O'Hare, who emailed us. She said, "Good morning, Secrets of StarQuest team. I am on the Jack track of watching the Stargate TV series for the first time, and am enjoying catching up with your podcast and diving into the deeper theology that comes up. Sometimes I find myself thinking, spoilers, come on, then remember that the show started 25 years ago. Oh well, I'll stick around. Yeah, I know a lot of stuff that happens later on in the show just from looking at the wikis and just kind of through nerd osmosis, but it's still a lot of fun.
And we haven't exactly been shy about just letting the spoilers come out, but like you said, this is a 25-year-old show.
Yeah,
so
I also try to be sensitive, and the spoilers, hopefully we won't get to those episodes for another 3 or 4 years, and everyone will have forgotten about it by then.
Yep.
Yeah, I think 5 years is kind of the statute of limitations for spoilers. In my opinion. So here's she had some 2 pieces of feedback. She said that Hathor gives her Katy Perry vibes, and that she's surprised that she's gone, not sci-fi gone, but somehow comes back. I definitely see the Katy Perry resemblance there with the outfits and stuff.
A little bit.
And what people need to realize is before Joss Whedon and Stephen Moffat with the Buffyverse and then the Doctor Whoverse, in sci-fi, once somebody died, they were typically dead. They did. I mean, sometimes they came back, but it wasn't like Stephen Moffat with Doctor Who. It's oh, you're dead. Well, we'll bring you back in 3 episodes. Or
they literally did that with Spock in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
Search for Spock.
Oh, okay. That's Spock.
How many times did Lore die? Supposedly.
Oh yeah, every single.
Now, brother. Yeah.
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 Outside of Star Trek, yeah, but
I don't know. I mean,
and Doctor Who, and
I'm hopeful because the actress has kept up so much with the fandom over the years that if they bring back Stargate, I would hope that they would bring back Hathor.
They have to bring, they have to bring her back.
That'd be really cool.
She also says, the Bane episode in Colorado Springs. I've lived in Colorado my whole life and have friends and family from Colorado Springs, especially in the 90s. And there are a lot of rundown areas in the city. Cheyenne Mountain borders the south side of the town too, which is a rougher area. My friend thinks you could set a zombie apocalypse movie there in some parts. The urban region of Colorado Springs has done a lot in the last decade to grow and improve based on my visits to family and the university.
Oh,
and
cool.
she also says to let her know if we need any more Colorado fact checking. And she's currently in season 3 of the show and season 2 of the podcast. And thanks for the deeper themes and dad jokes. Well, you're welcome for
yeah.
at least.
Yeah, I don't know who's providing the deeper themes here, but we've definitely got the dad jokes covered.
Lisa tries. Tries.
She's the one who keeps us grounded.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I don't know when this episode's going to air, but I wanted to put in a plug. I didn't know this was a thing, but Sam and Jack Ship Day is on July 28th. That's the anniversary of the first airing of Divide and Conquer, which we'll get to, which is the episode where they were forced to admit they had feelings for each other. So depending on this when this episode airs, Sam and Jack Ship Day could just be mere days or weeks away. So we'll have to think of something special to do.
Definitely. I'll look at the calendar and we'll get our party hats out.
or the napkins to mop our eyes as we're tearing up.
Yes, definitely. Awesome. Before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Stargate, including Paula W., Fady A., Bernadette C., Elizabeth T., and Carrie B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate, and you can email us at stargate@sqpn.com or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on Twitter at SQPN. And we'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of SG-1, Maternal Instinct. Until then, Father Cory, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Stargate.
Thanks, Jack.
And Victor Lambs, thank you too.
Thanks, Jack, and you're the most important thing that has ever happened to my planet.
I'm glad that I could be that for you. And once again, I'm Jack Baruzzini. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?